Anyway, I just wanted to give a little bit of a brief movement or a brief overview in relation to information, because a lot of what we talked about today is to do with data and looking at incidences and looking at information and looking at trends. Okay, another way it came up in the leadership piece earlier, and then it also came up in the bit on 3.1 that we were looking about analysis of information. And I suppose it's just a general quick overview. You'll get more information about this either from ourselves or elsewhere, but it's just to point out that the expectation for what we do with information and with data has changed somewhat in relation to how we should be analysing it. So governance rating, this is in their standard in 5.2 that we looked at earlier, is in relation to quality and safety outcomes for service users. And again, if you hear me say one more time, you're going to throw me out of the room. What are we doing with the information that we have and how we're making any changes on it? This, for those of us that have JCI, has been in JCI for a while. But the last set of standards had a much bigger increase on data utilisation than the previous ones had. And it also had a shift from not only looking at it at an organisational basis, but also looking at it at a departmental basis, so looking at it in the various different areas as much as anywhere else. What to measure? Again, from the focus has changed in that it's not just a single suite of measures. We asked earlier about the KPIs, and while there's guidance out there, the big focus now has been about making sure that whatever it is that we're measuring is applicable to our organisation. And that if we set up a set of information that we're looking at, that we're making sure that we're reviewing that on a regular basis so that it's still relevant and it's still what we want to be looking at. There's some examples of that. Now, in terms of presentation of data, we've done a bit of work on this in terms of the hospitals that we've gone around to just to see what's happening and internationally to see where the shifts and trends are. So just if you're including this into your review, what we have found is that first of all, it's still as important as ever to give a lot of consideration to what the information is that you want to. And these templates exist all over the place. You'll find them on the HSE, which is just a template for what exactly is the measure that we actually want to bet. The point here is just mainly to point out that if you're looking to measure something, to always have the rationale and what exactly the numerator and the denominator are for it. So what exactly am I looking for that I want to look at it? But in terms of measurement, that these are the kind of graphs that people are now moving towards at this stage. And that while, I mean, maybe you're all at this level, maybe this is what's happening, there are cases of still looking at numbers. But realistically, if we're trying to demonstrate that we're actually looking at trends, and that we're looking at information, and that we're looking to see changes in the organisation, this is where we need to be trying to get to in relation to numbers, okay? Not trying to freak out anyone by showing you an idea, but it's very definitely where the future part of it is. This one, for example, is just an example from somewhere about fire alarm activation between 2016 and 2018. What you can't see down here is that that's a month, so that each of the timelines it's over a time period, okay? So on a monthly basis, how many times did the fire alarm go off at any particular point in time? So they're only very small numbers, but what we can see is that the trend is going down. And every time someone starts looking at information now in healthcare and data, the key things they're looking for is, if we measure this over time, what direction is this going in? Is it something that's resolving, or is it something that we're finding an improvement in? And are there any areas that we should be concerned with? So where there were spikes, what were them spikes, and what was related to it? So that's just a very basic example. Another one here, for example, it's just a different way of laying it out, is the blue line here is 2017, and the red line is 2018. So there's different ways of actually displaying that information on the graph, so that rather than it going from one to the other, we're actually just being able to mirror and see the information across the two different areas. And this happens to be staff absenteeism, but it could be anything. We can see that in January this year, it's much higher than it was last year, but now it's coming down to about the same level. So our questions would want to be, why is it higher in January? What happened? Did the outbreak of flu happen at that particular time? Was there anything else that went on? Was it just a you know what I mean?
Okay, it wasn't snow.
It wasn't snow? No. Exactly. But you know, it's like this is what prompts our questions. And all those times today when we talked about analysis of information, looking at things, identifying trends, and this is really where we're trying to think of getting to, because you can get so much information quickly out of this. And it takes a while obviously to get here, but it's trying to push out some of the areas. again, infection control, adverse events, for example. The blue line might be 2017, the red line might be 2018, and you're just starting to wonder, why did it go up there higher than some of the different areas? We had a nice time here, February, March, April, May, where things were down as normal. Why did it go up in June? And very often there's a proper reason for this. You know, we just had, this is just very complex patients, there was something else going on with it, but it's so that we understand what the information is. And when I was talking to some of you earlier about asking you know, who's responsible for having a look at this stuff to say, is there something going on here? That's what you're trying to get at. You know, is there something that we should be gaining from this to give us information? A lot of the time, this is what we see at the moment. Okay, just as an example, staff abs and its numbers, and it's fine, but you can't see it as clearly as you can over the other areas. The other ones that we tend to see are, for example, pressure ulcers and numbers. And it takes you quite an amount of time to look at it and try and figure out what's happening here. Is it moving? Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going in different directions? We also see a bit of this, which is in relation to the bar charts. That's 1 year on year, but again, it's hard to actually get anything out of that to try and see whether it's giving us the information or not. And then different quarters. So from a quarterly perspective, that they're all pulled in together. So it's just an idea in terms of bearing in mind, because there is so much of a focus in terms of information, that the trend at the moment and the way it's going is towards that overview of, you know, trending over time gives you the best overview in terms of where the information is. And if there's any other, if there's any information out of it, it's the fastest and easiest way to actually get that